Well, I just wanted to share with all of you a pretty cool little golf cart project that I've been working on. This is known as a Yamaha Turfmate, more specifically a Yamaha G6A. Pretty rare nowadays, originally from Japan, I believe. A few made their way to the States, and only very few made it here to Australia. It's been pretty cool. When I got this thing, I sat down with a beer and just stared at it for quite some time because it really is a tribute to Yamaha and their ingenuity back in the 80s. I got it pretty cheap, needed a lot of work, and I soon found out that getting information for these things is pretty hard. But I managed to get through to Yamaha headquarters and they sent me through a full manual, which was quite helpful. I learnt that these came in two style engines. This is a vertical cylinder 125cc engine, and there was a variant where the other cylinder, or the other engine I should say, was on more of a slant. Working out the electrical system was pretty tricky, but got there in the end. As you can see here on the control panel, a lot of this stuff isn't usually on Turfmate. I've put a key in, obviously, which I think used to sit here, but put a couple other cool little things in. I've got a battery gauge here which you push and lights up, tells you you've charged in the battery. Also got a horn which is pretty loud. That's mounted down in the front there with its own dedicated relay. One of the biggest problems with this thing, the carburetor that I had was completely flogged out and I couldn't get another one. And I tried a few different carburetors and things, and actually found out by pure coincidence that one of the carburetors on my Honda lawnmower, the centers from the center of this stud to the center of that stud was pretty much bang on. But just to rewind a little bit, through working on Yamaha quad bikes and things, the carburetor port, which is down here, is made out of a hardened plastic, and over time they do crack with people being heavy-handed, which was quite a major obstacle to get over. I actually fabricated one out of stainless steel. It's pretty hard to see in there, but it's all TIG welded. Had to get that angle right and the other flange angle right, plus that angle. It was quite a mission, but we got there. So that's the carburetor, and I'll explain this pretty elaborate linkage system in a second. But what happens is, on your controls here, there's a micro switch, and what would happen is when you squeeze this trigger, the micro switch would make a contact, the wire would come down, and it would trigger your starter motor generator in the front there, and then off you'd go. But what actually happened was, on here, this play is what contacts the switch under here. And I found that with this carburetor, by the time this play took out and I was at a position enough where the switch had engaged and the starter motor was going, I was at maybe 3/4 throttle already, which was an issue. So I needed to figure out a way where I can have the generator starter motor cranking with the throttle in a neutral position. So I ended up getting this little switch here on eBay, which is for a horn or a start or a kill on kids' motorbikes, which worked perfectly. I've mounted it in a good spot there where my thumb, I can press it and squeeze the throttle at the same time. And then what I also did was I put a switch here which enables the engine to run without me standing here holding this switch in, so I can let it warm up while I'm getting out the car and getting my golf clubs and things. Yeah, so it's come up really well. The throttle linkage down here, I had to have the cable come in on this bracket which I made, which then goes across to a spring, because on these Honda type lawnmowers, the whole thing is operated with a governor, and there's actually no throttle cable as such. So to get this all to work was a bit of a mission, but as you can see now, it all works really well. The other thing I had to do was, these golf carts have a little 12 volt fuel pump, which you can see down there. And on the first carburetor I tried, I think it was quite a cheap one, but it actually overpressured, and fuel started spraying everywhere and dripping on the ground. So I managed to get a genuine carby, which seemed to, the needle and seat could withstand the pressure supplied by the fuel pump, but as a safety measure and just in case, I actually tapped a tiny little M4 nipple right here. It's actually from a remote controlled nitro car. So I tapped that in and ran the fuel line back to tank. So if it does overpressure at all, rather than dumping fuel everywhere, it'll come out of there and back into the tank. I haven't seen any fuel in this line yet, but it's there as a safety anyway. I didn't want to have that trouble again. Another little thing with these things with age, the fuel sight here, the glass, originally it's all one piece in the cap, and over time that was really sun damaged, and it actually had completely broken off. So I managed to, a bit hard to see here in the light, there we go, unscrew that and actually machined the face of it off just enough, and actually had some acrylic or polycarbonate. I had a black donut cut first that went down to hide that machined face, and then a clear disc that went on top, and then when you screw the cap back on, it sandwiches it all back down, and there we go. It's good as new. Had to put a little fuel breather in. Obviously, if there's fuel coming back in, I didn't want the tank to overpressurize. Yeah, I've repowder coated all the rims. They're brand new tyres. The other issue that I encountered was the original front tyres on these came out as a 14-inch, and I've looked high and low, and I actually cannot find 14-inch tyres, so I managed to find a 13-inch, but the issue I was going to encounter then was at the front end of the golf cart was going to be too low, pardon me. So what I wanted to do then was to actually drop the front suspension arm on the ends about ½ an inch, which would then counter for the 1 inch overall in diameter. So you can see here, originally this line here just carried straight through, which was this edge here, but I cut it, dropped it down ½ an inch, and then plated it in with these gussets to give me that ½ an inch, and it's worked really well. One thing I always check on my golf carts is slop in the suspension play, and here on the steering you can see these brass bushes. You can actually buy a kit, but being a machinist, I had a bit of brass there and machined up 4 new bushes. They don't look like much from this side, but they are actually a top hat shape, so they come in from the bottom, and they're all greased up, and I think they should last for as long as I'll be having this golf cart. One thing to mention, the person I bought it off said it stopped going, and I think they thought that the issue was the CDI unit, which is this unit down here with this orange and red and black connector. And through restoring this thing, I think that the actual issue was the carburetor, because it was fouling up the plug that quick that it would kill the spark with only a couple of seconds of running time, and then you got no spark. So I think they've removed the CDI unit, when in actual fact it was the carburetor, which left me trying to find a CDI unit. Now, that is impossible. No one could give me any information, but doing some research, from what I can see on petrol Yamaha golf cars, is that the only golf carts that actually have a CDI unit are Yamaha G1 and G9, I believe. The G1 completely different, sort of just push-in connectors, whereas the G9 had this exact same plug, and the wires looked like they married up, so I thought I'd give it a go. And so far so good. Plugged it in, had spark straight away. So that's a win. For anyone that might not have a CDI unit and wondering what to do, Yamaha G9 is the winning ticket so far. So there we go. Pretty cool bit of gear. I've got the body all painted up, ready to go. In the next video, I'll show that all fitted up, and we'll go from there. But it's been good fun painting everything, the frame, the exhaust, the whole lot. It's as good as new.